Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and today I'm driving one of the cars I've quite fancied owning for a long time, but I've never quite got around to it. Well, it's a long list of cars admittedly, but this one is quite a fun coupe. It is a 7th generation Toyota Celica. Sharp styled, sharp handling, sharp looking. But what's it like? Let's take it for a drive and find out. Don't forget, if you like reviews of interesting and unusual cars, then do smash that like and subscribe button. And now, on with the review. Proud to be sponsored by Diamond Bright, the car care products that have been keeping the Furious fleet looking their best for a long time already. To find all you need to keep your car clean and protected, follow the link below to diamondbright.co.uk. Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and today we're looking at this, the 7th and final generation of the Toyota Celica, a car which ran from 1999 to 2006 after 36 years of Celica production. Well, not this example exactly, but this generation was the final iteration and in fact a slightly different take on the theme. Let's take a look around. Now, along with Nissan Z cars, the Celica was Japan's muscle car, and the first few generations followed a fairly standard pattern: front engine, rear wheel drive, long bonnet, standard muscle car stuff. But come the 7th generation, they were looking for something new and different. There was a thing called Project Genesis going on in America in Toyota to try and attract a newer, younger fleet of buyers to the range of Toyota cars. And if you get an Uber anywhere and look at the guy driving that Prius, you know it definitely worked. So to that end, the car was designed in California, in CALTI, the American design office of Toyota. CALTI standing for California and Toyota. It's a lovely little portmanteau. CALTI as a design office is very California indeed. It started off in El Segundo, a town on the edge of LA with huge hot rodding history, and after a couple of years expanded and moved to Newport Beach, where this was designed. So more modern, more radical, more different. Very, very, very sharp styling indeed. The wedge, the crisp lines, the cab forward look, which is far more new millennium. But interestingly, Celicas do have a bit of history with California going back a generation, because the 6th generation, hit the link up here to see, the convertible versions were built by ACS in California, who did a lot of other interesting Japanese convertible conversions as well. But like the 6th generation, it follows the same pattern: front engine, front wheel drive. It's actually relatively small. It's barely any bigger than the first original generation Celica, so it's a lovely compact car. However, the wheelbase is such that it's the longest wheelbase Celica of all, which means it's got lots of interior room and amazing wheels in the corner handling. Now, you might be surprised to lift the bonnet of a out-and-out proper sports car and find just a 1.8 litre 4-cylinder in there, but this is actually pretty powerful for the weight of the car, 130 bhp per tonne, which puts it on a par with a 2.8 litre Capri. Anyway, there are two versions, the 1.8 and the 1.8. More specifically, the ZZT230 and the ZZT231. But depending on the car's model designation, whether it's a ZZT230 or a ZZT231, you get either a 1ZZFE in the lower spec model with 140 horsepower, or you get a ZZZGE in the higher spec model, which is 190 horsepower. They're both variable valve timing, and they're both developed with assistance from Yamaha, who also did the rather nice engine in the Puma 1.7. So those are people who like high-revving fun motors. So all good under the hood. Right, this might be a coupe, but it is a liftback, which basically means it's enormously useful. If you've seen me trying to get things in and out of my Rover 200 coupe, it's not like this. You've got a little letterbox at the back, and it's very difficult to get anything usable in there. You might remember my Hyundai coupe, which was actually a direct rival to one of these in a Santa Pod Challenge a couple of years ago, and that was very similar to this in that it was a vast boot, really big opening, but not that deep. So we've got a height of, well, that much here at the opening. It goes a bit deeper at the back. A little curious ledge, really, so you can put things that won't rattle around behind where the spare wheel sits under the floor. In this pristine boot, there's another alloy wheel just waiting down there for the day it's finally needed. But yeah, this car kind of has everything: beauty, power and practicality. It's a triple threat. But what's the interior like? Let's go and find out. Right, let's take a look around the interior, and you walk up to it and you notice these sharp lines of this low, pointy windows and this big crease down the side, a smaller, less noticed crease down the bottom, and surprisingly normal door handle actually. I'm shocked how ordinary that is. But step inside, we've got quite a high level of luxury. We've got our, it looks like it's all leather, but actually it's not. It's a cunning trick. We've got leather up here on the touch points of the handle. We've got leather on the armrest. leather on this pad here. Everything else is actually moulded plastic that looks a lot like leather, but as you're unlikely to touch it, you're unlikely to ever notice. Over in the front of the armrest, we've got a nice metal door handle. These Japanese rolling lock switches, which all Japanese cars seem to have. They have omitted the second button for locking the door, which other Japanese cars seem to have quite frequently. Big buttons for your mirrors, and tweeter and big woofer, and a handy stowage bin down the bottom of the door. All good stuff. Stepping in, we will not forget we're in a Celica because we've got this nice stainless steel and faux carbon fibre kick plate. And then we've got the leather seats, looking very good indeed. Figure hugging bucket seats, basically. Nice and squishy and soft, with see-through areas in the back, either for looking over your shoulder or perhaps for attaching race harnesses. Let's get in and see what they're like to sit in. Oh, very, very low. My God, it's low. I'm literally on the floor. Proper sports car seating position back here. These seats are very comfortable indeed. Now let's have a look at the T-shelf. Important T-shelf information. It's, wow, so many contours and one texture, lots of contours. This thing is not great for putting cups of tea on. It'll fall off your airbag, and that's the only flat plateau of storage for snacks up there, so we will have to award this merely 2 out of 10 in terms of T-shelfery. I am intrigued by all these shapes, the triangles, the bulging air vents coming through there, this extra triangle up here. All very curious, very interesting. And moving left to right though, we've got 4 of these little eyeball air vents, which are almost Italian in their style. Then we have a big cutaway for the passenger area over the glove box. In the centre we've got our digital clock just there, and we've got a useful pop-up cubby. I'm going to do that again, that's quite fun. Wow, boingy, we like a boingy thing. That's above a giant radio, doubled in, big American market chubby finger buttons. Sometimes the Japanese go for big chubby finger buttons, sometimes they don't, but if it's a car aimed at the American market, they do go for the big buttons, which I'm sure someone will comment very shortly about how that's not because of big chubby fingers, that's because people drive it in Alaska and wear gloves and stuff. Underneath that we've got our heating and ventilation, air conditioning and temperature. Interestingly, there's no red and blue gauge around this, no plus minus, it's just a thing you have to know that cold is left and hot is right, or at least I assume it is, and push to see the outside temperature. That's quite fun. There we can see the outside temperature is 19, inside temperature 19.5. Underneath that we have got our 12-volt socket and sweetie wrapper tray. 6-speed manual gearbox with a lovely perforated leather gear knob. All European cars came with the 6-speed manual. There was an auto option for the American market, I believe, but not on this side of the pond. More of the same perforated leather, which looks absolutely lovely on the handbrake. And we've got our electric windows and central locking button have moved to the centre. This was a cost-cutting thing that Toyota were doing at the time to try and save a bit of money on cars and to streamline production, so centre-mounted electric windows. A couple of cup holders and a nice storage bin behind that. You'll notice though, this is very much a thing of the 1990s and early noughties. We've got the kind of satin, almost silvery painted plastic just here. So not actual metal, not a tactile thing, just silvery plastic. Very, very common at that era. Moving to the right, we've got our hazard warning lights. Tucked quite well hidden on the edge of the binnacle just there. We'll assume that Toyotas don't brake very much because, well, they don't. Moving across, we've got our instrument binnacle itself, our tachometer redlining at 6,750, so really high revving engine, top speed showing 140 miles an hour on the dial, and then a digital area to the right showing our fuel and engine temperature. 416 degrees centigrade. Now, actually, I'm assuming that's a trip meter rather than temperature just there. To the right of that, we've got our dashboard dimming, our lockout for the passenger window if you really don't like your passenger to your left. And not a lot else down here. Oh, and underneath we've got our raising and lowering of the headlamps themselves. Moving back slightly, then we've got our stalks, indicators and lights on the left, wipers on the right, then moving back and we've got more of the rather fancy perforated leather on the steering wheel. Looks and feels really rather nice. And of course the horn test. Ooh, that's a determined parp. Determined parpy. As you may have noticed from the noises above me, it is currently raining. So we'll be exploring the wipers shortly, and you may notice also we've got a sunroof, electric sunroof here, buttons here by the lights. I won't open it right now because I'm going to get rained on. Headroom is actually quite impressive for such a low slung car. We are sitting in relatively high comfort, although don't forget I am sitting literally on the ground. This seat is so very low. Right, let's get this thing on the road and see what it's like to drive. Right, let's get the Celica on the road. Wow, that's a lot of rain. I should tell you that in the interim, we had to take a short break while we were waiting for the rain to pass, and the rain was absolutely torrential, and we've now got floods on the street. Well, getting this thing on the road, you sit so low. It's amazing. Even when you're going relatively slowly, it feels like you're absolutely flying along because you're chafing your bum on the tarmac. Even sort of sub 40 miles an hour, it feels rapid, which is quite impressive on a car which is basically, a massive Mini, because the wheels are pushed right out into the four corners of the car, giving incredible stability. And what I'm finding already is the road holding is just astonishingly sure-footed. And this car is the 140 horsepower version, not the more extreme 190. But really, I'm not short of power, and it pulls out of corners incredibly willingly. Everything is very well thought out, everything's well laid out. By the turn of the millennium, cars were really at peak car. Everything's been downhill ever since in many ways. So the controls are really perfectly well laid out. They're chunky enough to be usable, but they're not oversized and indiscreet. There's a nice tactile feeling to everything. The steering wheel's got lovely leather. The gear shift has got a really nice throw to it. It's all just good and just right in here. Nothing's more than a slight stretch of the arm away. It's all just right, really. So ergonomically, it is extremely good. So the final Mark 7, and in fact the final ever Celica, rolled off the production line April 21st 2006, not to be replaced. The only thing close to replacement from Toyota was the Scion TC, that's with a small t, in the US market. The rest of the world has had to do without, and in fact that's quite a common theme, as coupes seem to have vanished from most companies' lineups in recent years, and that's a real shame, because they had a touch of style and interesting elegance, sporty but practical, that's just not there anymore. A Ford Puma may be fun, but it lacks the elegance and style of a car like this. Bring back the coupe, I say. Bring back the choice. This gearbox is so slick. You just drift it from gear to gear and it slots straight in. It is an absolute joy to use. Such short ratios as well. And this car is great in the corners. Amazing grip and stability. But let's see what it's like getting onto a dual carriageway at some higher speed. And it accelerates extremely well. Wow, that is properly brisk. It feels like a real sports car. Hitting the national limit, it's really smooth and comfy. This is what really gets me about this car. It's so comfortable. It's got incredible handling, but at the same time, it just feels easy to live with. As an everyday sports car, you really cannot go wrong with this thing. It kind of does everything, doesn't it? If you need to go a long distance, and I know the owner of the car came down today and did about 300 miles or so, and he emerged as fresh as a daisy after doing all that distance in the car. If you want to take it down a fast back road, well, it's got your back. It's going to look after you there as well. If you need to move something, okay, the boot is very shallow, but it's very big as well. If you need to move a few bits and pieces, well, again, the Celica is your man. This really is. I say jack of all trades does suggest it's a master of none, but no, it does everything so well. This goes back to 20 years ago when suspension was really good. The ground is wet, roundabout is big, but we can go around. We're not slipping, we're not sliding. The car's doing its thing. It's so good. It's so controlled. What a great car. It might have the same power to weight ratio as a 2.8 Capri, but you're far less likely to wind up facing backwards in a ditch driving this. And the fuel bills won't bankrupt you either. 36.5 to the gallon. I should have said that earlier. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this ride out in this hidden high mileage, really nice Toyota Celica Mark 7. If you have, as always, make sure you do it right now, smash the like and definitely hit that subscribe button. And join me again next time driving something completely different.